Okay, welcome, welcome. We are your 215, your monster panel on the program panelists. We are going to be snowballing and building like Voltron as the rest of our panel members get here. But needless to say, my name is Jeff Carroll. This is the monster panel. We call it the monster panel because we are all monsters in our field, monsters with what we do. Today's topic is why we love sci-fi. So we're going to be talking to two good panelists right now. Let me see. All right. As Mike is already testing out his microphone, mic on the mic.
I'll be sure not to drop the mic.
I'm going to let Mike go first. I'm going to give him the first question. So Mike, as you are answering your question first, he's fanning out. Everybody is on this
Can you take a picture for me?
social media. He got to work his brand.
There's one or two pictures.
That's okay. It's all good. So Mike, as you work your social media, right?
Yes.
We're here on a sci-fi convention. This is not a comic book convention only. This is really sci-fi. We have a bar from Star Trek over in the corner, and everybody's dressed up as different characters. So tell us who you are and what you do. But as you answer this question, why is sci-fi such a hot genre? And then we're gonna let Monique go next.
Personally, first of all, I'm Mike Seeley. I do art. I'm doing some art currently with doing some stuff with Marvel and Upper Deck, and I've done some stuff with LucasArts and Tops, some card sets. So that's my art thing, and I've done some stuff for independents and stuff like that. But as far as sci-fi goes, I think sci-fi personally is so hot now is because everybody is looking for something that can take them away a little bit. Because we got too much life, there's plenty of life that's reality and real life stuff, and yes, sci-fi has elements of reality in it, and that's why we can attach ourselves to it. But that it takes us away in whether it's majestic places or places that are foreign that we'd love to go and venture out, whether it's space or fantasy, which involves swords and
Magic.
like that, magic and stuff.
All right, let's hear from the young lady. Pass that mic down, Mike. All right, so Monique, I already told everybody your name, but as you introduce yourself, just try, everybody has their own speculations from it, but you're a writer, right? What is it about science fiction and sci-fi that is like, oh my God, it's all these movies, they don't even want to compare a science fiction movie to other movies. It's like, okay, Avengers and all that, and Star Wars and all that, what other movie did you like this year, you know? Sci-fi is actually so hot that they only are compared against other sci-fi. Why is sci-fi so hot?
I think because the possibilities are endless. It gives answers to our problems, and like Mike said, it's a little bit of escapism. It also is a conduit to answering the world's problems, whether it be disease, climate control. Earlier in another panel I was with, we discussed some quotes by Ray Bradbury that he writes sci-fi not to predict the future, but to prevent it. So because humans have such power, whether for good or evil, you want to make sure that you're in the right mind and the right place to not be, creating future problems for the world. Because we only have one Earth. There are often in times when the astronomers are saying like, oh look, there's another planet a lot like ours, another dimension. Well, how you gonna get there? So that's a good question.
And did you tell us who you are and what you do?
Oh, I'm a school teacher and I'm a writer. I primarily write speculative fiction, which is pretty much, it encompasses fantasy and science fiction, horror. It's pretty much the what could happen if, then this statement. and just here hanging out with my friends. And I'm promoting my work. One of the books I have with me is Moonstruck. It's a fantasy that includes lucid dreaming. So if you know what lucid dreaming is, it's pretty much the ability that you realize you're dreaming and you can control your dreams. So the premise is this little boy has to figure out a way to undo a nightmare, which is coming into reality by using his dreams to unlock his nightmares and destroy them.
So you just took my last question, what you working on, away. So when we do our last question, Monique doesn't get to answer that one, right? That's okay. So now our next panelist that's here, Dorothy, the question is, why is sci-fi so hot? Now I know you're a writer and you got a real hot comic book, but answer the question of why you think it is, and if there's anything else you want to tell everybody about you, introduce yourself, but why do you think sci-fi is so hot? Why you like it so much that that's what you create? Go ahead.
If you're a fan of anime, you know, anime, they use a lot of science, and I'm a very big fan of science. Like, science and history was my favorite majors. So it's one of the reasons why sci-fi is so important and it's so popular right now. Like, I'm trying to learn how to write sci-fi books, so I tend to look up to Jeff and look up, ask him questions on how to write sci-fi. I even got Robert Jeffrey, his comic book, and he created his own universe. And the way he wrote that book, it really motivated me to create my own universe based on Haitian leads. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, so that's what kind of sparked my interest into reading more sci-fi.
All right. Now, I give my little answer as I roll into the next question. I think an easy answer is almost like where Monique was going, right? We're actually in the future. I know every time we've had people alive, they've been in somebody else's future, right? No question, and that's kind of a silly comment. But what I say when I say that is that we actually are in the future that people imagined, would be, and it's very hard for even sci-fi writers to create technology beyond the technology that we already have. We have cell phones, so the communicator is outdated right now. We got tablets, we have 3D vision, we have all these different things. So it's really hard to fascinate people with some type of way out cyberpunk world when we already have a New York City, we already have a Tokyo, and they're almost fully automated. We have Amazon that's delivering packages without people. We've got meter maids now that are going to be robot meter maids giving out parking tickets. So, I think that's probably why sci-fi is dominating, is because people have no excuse but to get it, because the world that we're living in is so science fiction, or so science driven, so science dominated. We're so science dominated that we almost are making rules now to prevent Cybertron from actually happening. It was Elon Musk who was saying that we're going to create a psychopathic robot. That's what he just said last week, that we're on the verge of creating a totalitarian dictator, runaway AI robot if we're not careful. So he warned us in real time that what Sarah Connor was joking about is actually real. So my second question, and then now we go in any order, but you all get a shot at the questions. So what do you like individually, right, about the different mediums of science fiction? And that is comic book, novel, film and television, and even role-playing games or tabletop games. Is there anything you like about each one of them? Or maybe there's just one you just can't stand? Which ones do you really, that you like, say, make comic books for, or you like film for, or you like books, something like that? So anybody want to answer that question?
The way they gravitate our attention.
Which one?
I read Mind to Avenge, and that was my first sci-fi comic book.
Okay.
And I have
Mind to Avenge.
Mind to Avenge, yes, by Robert Jeffrey. He's also he wrote that DC comic book.
Oh, you're talking talking about Green Lantern story.
Yes, he wrote that book. That was the first comic book because I always watch sci-fi television shows. So like when I actually read it in the comic book form, like it really inspired me and it really gravitated my attention. So now I'm much more. I want more. Like I want to read the novels and more comics instead of just watching them on on TV or in the movies.
You feel that the comic books and the novels give you a little deeper connection?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Michael, Monique?
I'm more visual, obviously, because I'm a visual artist. So when I look at it on a comic book scale,
I thought you were going to say because you look nice, but that's...
No. Don't get that
I'm
fooled.
visual because I look visual a lot.
No. But like comic books is a perfect example. Depending on the artist, they can set the mood a certain way. Whether it's a rough sketch or way it's sketched out, it can have a very rough mood to it. It can be heavy shadow or it can be brighter. And so it can depict what type of world that they're living in, just based on that visual. And the same thing goes with sci-fi and movies. You can set that tone, I think, of Black Mirror. I don't know if anybody's seen any of those.
I will say second season Black Mirror because I like it better.
Yeah. I just like it because it's all like almost now.
Right.
It's like absolutely like tomorrow. The technology that is there is stuff we already have, but it's there. But it's sci-fi. But each one you watch, when you watch them, each one is an individual story on its own. So each one have their own mood and set in their pace. Whether it's a deeper feeling or a lighter feeling, it projects that feeling. So that's why I like film in that sense.
Okay. Now, Monique, before you go, I want to piggyback on what you said. I'm a filmmaker first. That was my first attempt at creativity. And then I progressed to writing a comic book and then novel. And I'm working on the tabletop game, okay? And there's something I like about each one. And my son threw in there somewhere video game, right? So that may just be like a combination of the role-playing game and the movie, right? But there's something I like about that hasn't fully broke yet, but I play Assassin's Creed, and the ability to run around in a landscape and create your own story and see it played out with shadows and characters. You can't totally make your own thing, but you can make your own story. You can carve your own story out. I like that. I think that's something that I will see in the future. But I'm still hung up on movies. I still think movies and television are so dominant. You know, it pulls from the actor's creativity, it pulls from the editor's creativity, of course the writer and the director, in a way that the editor and the writer in the novel don't, and in a way that the editor, illustrator, and the writer in a comic book don't necessarily do. I think it's just there's so much involved in a television show or a movie when they get it right. I think, yeah. So when they get it right, you know, it's really simple to mess up a book because you really just have the writer and the editor. But there's a lot more can go wrong in a television show or a movie. So when they get it right, you got all of those people's creativity working. You know, you got Denzel, you know what I'm saying? You got another hot director, you know, and somebody on costume. Then you end up with Black Panther, you know, where so many things fire. But anyway, Monique, that was my answer. I like movies for now, but I think video games is coming up right close to it.
I don't think all the mediums of science fiction, but it depends on who's making it or producing it, because in books there's like a slow burn to the world building. If you don't do it properly, the reader will be confused. It will seem not organic, it'll seem contrived. And then I also like movies too, because usually the book came before, you know, the movie, or if the movie was done first, and then like other writers will pick up on it.
Like Star Wars.
Exactly. Then you have this this canon of new visions, new ideas, new characters. I think it's interesting. I like them all, but it depends on who's giving it to, who's packing it and giving it to me.
I actually would have guessed that would have been your answer. this is my second time being on the panel with you. We've known each other for a few years, so I actually would have guessed that was going to be your answer. But I think it's a good answer because we all get different answers. And I actually think you're right. I'm a bandwagon jumper too, so I like LeBron. So wherever he goes, I think LeBron is good because I think the players make the team. What you say? Well, the Lakers. Okay, we're not gonna go off on basketball. So now, sci-fi isn't millions of millenniums old, although we've seen science fiction and parables, stories in the Bible, Aesop fables, folklore, and things like that. It really got its roots in the 1900s. You know, we had a golden era in the 60s and in the 70s, and we almost consider that old sci-fi. And then we have the Star Wars or Star Trek coming in the middle era, and now we see what we have now in the latter era. But going back to those early times, probably weren't really the most diverse times, right? But are any of y'all familiar with those early works of sci-fi from the 60s and the 70s, right before Star Wars, Flash Gordon? Mike, you want to speak to that? What are some of the things that you like about the old sci-fi? Even the early Superman.
I'm stretching a little bit, but because I think people would pick up on it. But even the Jetsons.
Yes.
Get that, the Jetsons.
Yes.
And it's something that sticks in my head with the Jetsons is there's one scene where the girl they're talking like it's FaceTime.
Right.
And she has this.
Wasn't it in the refrigerator?
It may have been.
It was in the kitchen.
But
I
they
know.
would go sit down, and the two women were talking, and oh, you always look so amazing, and everything like that. And she was like, they're like, okay, I'll talk to you later, and then she took off her face. So we have that right now because you got all them filters, because you can't trust what anybody looks like
Hey,
in real life.
did you see the Stephen A. Smith?
It makes me think of the Jetsons.
Did you see the Stephen A. Smith one where they had the filter of him being a little boy?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my
that's
God.
funny.
Or the Mike Tyson on Sesame Street?
Yeah.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So it's like we that was sci-fi back then.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, she's actually talking to her friend somewhere far, and that is a real reality. But the actual David and she just woke up, both of them got curlers in their head, but nobody know how each other look.
Right, because
In
they're
real
all
life.
using filters.
And it's the same deal. We're in the same thing. So FaceTime, I mean that, and I just had to go there with a little bit.
No, that's
it's simplistic, but it's like everybody can kind of relate to it at that part.
I think, you know, my answer in that question is illustrated just like what you said, but then also I liked the playful funness about that early sci-fi. You would have a planet of cat people. Nowadays, people would say, oh, that doesn't make sense. How are you going to have fish people that don't believe in this? You got so many Google trolls, right? You know, that they would just destroy that. But, you know, you think of John Carter of Mars, you know, and I tell people that's how it was. A good example of old sci-fi made into new is Avatar with James Cameron. What kind of animals are those? What kind of humanoids are those? But if you go look at a 60s sci-fi book, those were the people that were on the cover. They had tails, you never know. They go to a planet, be all dinosaurs. You know, and nowadays people be like, we need factual evidence. This is Interstellar. This is, you know, this is Mars. This is The Martian, right? It has to be so factual, you know. Right, so the fantasy, you know, the speculative element is kind of taken out because we are living in so much of a science fiction world that people fact check you. They be like, there's no way that you know, Princess Leia could go outside the ship and come back in and still be alive. That doesn't make sense. You'd be like, none of it makes sense, silly.
We still don't have a lifesaver.
Right.
So you can be like, oh, I believe that.
Right.
I believe that.
But then you're going to hold it.
Leia, and she got the Force, I don't like that.
Right. So, you know, again, anybody else want to take a stab at that question, what you like about old sci-fi? Because maybe you've never read it, maybe you haven't. I just think it's okay. So I say that it is fun to look at some of the stuff. Another old sci-fi, right, is War of the Worlds. You know, War of the Worlds goes back years, and maybe now we're looking at a more multiculturalized space world, which is cool. And again, if you leave the racial element out of it, because old sci-fi will fail when it comes to diversity. It's going to fail when it comes to women, you know, because they really treated women horrible. You know, Planet of Venus was just all Me Too movement, you know, all jacked up.
Only mini skirt.
Yeah, so we'll leave all of that out. We'll give them a pass. But again, so old sci-fi has that element to it. Now, this new sci-fi that we're in, you know, I made a joke about The Martian and Interstellar, but there is something that's cool about it too. You know, we all write in pretty much this new world as creators of color. We get to bring in our Haitian culture. We get to bring in our gender, right? We get to bring in our race in different spectrums. What are some of the things that you like about it? I know my favorite classic was Planet of the Apes. And in the old sci-fi played out the racial tension in America, the racial divisions. You know, it's like, well, let's use an analogy of the apes, and if we treated them sort of the way black people might have been treated and considered, and it would flip that world upside down. You know, how would white people feel if apes were dominant or black people were dominant? And that was a really good analogy. I loved it. It really worked well. I was all over it. I even had the little Planet Apes figures when I was younger because I really liked the world. But then the new sci-fi approach was like, forget all of that. Let's talk about animal rights. Let's talk about how animals are treated and how they torture and experiment and test on animals. Because Planet Apes then became Revenge of the Lab Rats. So so that's just one thing, but you know, we have other things. So what are some of the things that you like about today's sci-fi? And I'll start with the ladies.
People are not holding back anymore. Like, you know, back in the days, they were so strict. It was so strict in creativity. Like, you know how Marvel and DC, they like to be strict with creativity and like reading comics and actually watching these shows. Like, people are like taking chances.
So exactly. Is your book with Marvel or DC or?
Never.
And what are you with now? Who are you published?
With short films, but
You're independent. And that's really cool because, like you said, all of what you just said, there are no gatekeepers.
I don't like restrictions at all.
Right, and you can get your product out straight the way you want it to be, straight to the market, you know, without any gatekeepers, and that's what you like. And I actually would say there probably wouldn't be a fast-paced black sci-fi genre if we didn't have Kindle, if we didn't have Comixology, if we didn't have print on demand, you know, because now we're able to get our products out there at a level of quality that can compete with the big, you know, publishers. People look at your book, if you've got a good cover designer, they don't know who, you know, if your book is a major publishing company or not. You know, same thing with your illustrations. You know, so it's also cool for illustrators and other people who have worked for these these companies, because after they don't want you anymore, guess what you can do? Put your stuff out there on your own. So some of the other things you like about it.
They've actually started, like the big guys, Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse and stuff like that. They're picking from the independents, from the creators. I'm talking writers. They're picking, like, they'll look at, like, say, for a comic book, they'll be scouting the artists and the writers on there, and that's how they're actually finding people. You don't, when you try to get into the business, you submit the stuff.
And they can steal it.
And they we don't like this and that, we need you to do this. But now they're actually looking through comics that people are producing independently and going, I think they need to work for us.
I remember I worked at the Apollo Theater for like 15 years, and I worked at the Apollo Theater before YouTube, right? And you used to have to audition at a record company. You used to have to send a demo tape in. Now, It's Justin Bieber world. You put your video up there on YouTube, you get it on Instagram, you get enough likes. You know, I don't know how y'all see them little 4 little black kids singing. I know Dorothy, she on Facebook killing it. So everything I post, she sees. But these little 4 little black kids singing now, we just wait any day for them to get a record deal because that's where it comes from now. Before, when I used to work in the record industry, I used to tell people I saw Soul for Real years before they came out.
It's the I told you it's making all day. Can't have a both at the same time. So I would turn off one of them this year.
All right. So we give a little feedback on your mic.
No, it just sounds like that because
I was like, they're making
they have what you're working on. It just sounds like it.
So I just think, you know, it's not going to be long because after the Justin Bieber, the record companies tried to get ahead of it. And they came up with American Idol.
They have an S.
Okay, here you go. So yeah, we'll just keep that off for a little bit. But yeah, now we may end up with a American Idol with comic books. The executives of the big comic book companies might come out, and you come up there with your character and do a little Shark Tank. But that's you know, that's how it used to be. So anything you like before I go into the next question about this world of modern sci-fi or anything of it, because it can be the stories like Dorothy said. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one, shall we? What are some of the things that you look forward to in the future of sci-fi? Either in the stories or technology or just something. What are some of the things that you might look forward to? Because we talked about the past, we talked about the present. What are some of the things that you look forward to? I know for me, I went to a virtual reality expo yesterday, and they demonstrated a 3-dimensional book where they would scan in your character, whether it is illustration or physical, and the character would tell the story. They also do 3D modeling of houses. So if you want to buy a house, you can go online and see the house almost the way if you ever played Call of Duty or Halo, and they had the worlds where you combat in, it would be just like that. So now you don't have to create your own Greek Colosseum. They will go there and map it out, and then you will fight in the actual Greek Colosseum. So I think that's one thing that I see coming, the 3-dimensional elements of technology and virtual reality being infused with stories, because right now they don't really have stories. So the next thing they're going to start doing is you're going to be that actual guy in Assassin's Creed running through shooting virtually in your full character form, not just using controllers. But yeah, Ready Player One, which I don't know whether he was dreaming of that, because I don't see him running, he was just laying in there, right? But I think this one, you may physically be moving. So, what do you think, what do you look forward to? You don't look forward to anything? Well, maybe you can touch my nose.
That would be nice.
I just want them to continue that diversity and just, it's not me, black characters with different backgrounds. Black characters with different backgrounds. I need them to have a Haitian leader as well. And, most of the characters they always look the same. Like, I would want a character to have dreadlocks like that's right here. Like, I want them to look different at all times. That is my take on it, diversity.
Did you see
I did not.
I'm not going to spoil it for you, so I'll just not say anything else.
Go see it.
Yeah, go see it.
I look forward to sci-fi, like kind of where she's saying the diversity and diversity as a whole, from the take on it and being where it's not so safe as far as future things. Like when I say it's not so safe, is like the way it's even looked at as far as sci-fi is for the most part looked at from the American viewpoint. It's not looked at from an Arabic viewpoint. It's not looked at from a Chinese viewpoint or Asian or that area. They have a different depiction, or even Africa sci-fi, and not just Black American sci-fi, because it's still influenced by American sci-fi. But I'm talking about Western. Yeah, Western is the best way to depict it. But actually, the world sci-fi. It's like we're the only ones that's in the future when you watch TV. You know what I mean? When you watch movies, but it's their view and how it is very different. When you go, whenever we go to any place or any kind of country, they have a very different taste in their food. We may go like that because our palate is already fixed. But you go there, and so their stories are still very different. I think in like India, their superheroes are really bizarre. When you watch the shows, I mean, they got these extra crazy powers that just don't make sense when you look at cinematically. But it's their view of it and how they depict it. So I want to see in the future more angles for sci-fi, not just America as future sci-fi.
Mike, we already think so much alike, it's amazing, right? I just did a presentation where I used the Wandering Earth as my example, but I'm gonna do you one better. I'll use my old example of Godzilla, right? Godzilla and King Kong. In the Western world, King Kong was a monster, kill him. In the Asian world, Godzilla is God, and he's ordained. And he's going to destroy the world, but he's also our hero. And that's been the conflict in Godzilla movies from the beginning, because Western cinema has been dominating and has been trying to take the Godzilla character and re-envision him through Western eyes and make him a monster. But yet, Godzilla is not a monster, and they got it kind of correct in the last two Godzillas. And this last Godzilla, it was really pronounced. But when you talk about diversity, that's exactly what I suggest. And I'm gonna go back to Wandering Earth, or I could go through horror. I have a story called It Happened on Negro Mountain. The story is about a ghost that protects the mountain. In the African American culture, African cultures, and various other non-Western cultures, ancestors are your dead. Your ancestors protect you. In H.P. Lovecraft Western philosophy, the dead are bad. Ghosts run. You don't even get a good ghost unless it's Ghost, which is a phenomenon story with Whoopi Goldberg, right? Or Casper. He has to be told he's the friendly ghost, because if he just said Casper the ghost, he wouldn't be good. Right. So I would like to see a lot more of that from different angles and all together in one. You know, not just an Asian story. I want to see it, if you're going to really do the Starship Enterprise, then put different philosophies on that ship. And then almost do it with The Expanse, where they've given every culture almost a planet, right? They've done it a little bit in Star Trek Discovery, where they've given, and I know there's various writers that try to do that as well. So that is definitely something I look forward to. So let's move on. Monique, no answer yet?
No, I disagree.
Okay, you agree. That's fine. I know you're going to come in.
I like her.
She said, I agree. I agree with that.
What I said.
Okay.
It's a little bit redundant.
So now, I don't know, I'm gonna ask this question anyway, and we can move past it if nobody has a long answer, because it might be a real unison answer. But we've seen so many missed stories in sci-fi, and I'm thinking of The Last Egyptians story. We heard this term cultural appropriation mostly come up because white actors are putting themselves in the roles of black and Native American characters, you know, so that's something that really came up. And this question was really popular when that stuff was going on. But do you think black creators have a certain responsibility to do whatever? Do they have to create black characters? Do they have to be true to black people? Can they do a Columbus discovered America story and perpetuate lies? Or do they have a responsibility to not lie? What is the responsibility do you feel a certain responsibility as a black creator? Or do you think other creators, black creators have maybe, I don't look at it as a burden, but maybe some people may feel it's a burden. Do you think there's anything that you feel that black creators should do? Anybody?
It's not going to be a long answer. I think black creation needs to focus on delivering creativity, original creativity. You think I need to speak louder? I just think we just need to deliver. Like, it doesn't matter. We can just take our inputs from different, from our readers, but after that, I think we just should deliver because, you know, there's not a lot of, like, women of color writing books. You know, like I said, there's only like 54 of us, so in counting. So I think we just should deliver and let us, the audience, make that judgment, and we just go from there.
Yeah, I think categorizing. Okay, this is just the black story. This is the only thing. So it's usually put into a particular category, and where I just want to be an artist. I just want to be a writer. You know what I mean? So, for example, when I was younger and I created superheroes, I've been doing comic books and creating superheroes for a long time. My first character was a Mexican guy who got superpowers that came into from Mexico. I didn't know much about it, but that's the story I wanted to tell. I didn't feel obligated that I need to make another Luke Cage or a Black Panther. No, he was actually, I'm not to get too far in the story, but he was adopted and brought into the country and went to college and everything like that. That's just how I envisioned it. It wasn't prototypical. And I wasn't trying to be different and visionary. Oh, he's going to go to college. Because they never showed him going to college. It was just like he went to college. And at the time, just real brief on the story, at the time, he, back when you went to college back in the day, you can sign up to do a study. And they give you money to sign up to do a study. I don't know how they do it in college now. If you sign up to do a study, you get in a study, they give you a little money or something like that. So he got into this study, and the study was to make him kind of smarter, and they played with him a little bit, did some stuff, and he got extra powers from it. So that was the basic story, but it was a Mexican guy who was adopted from his country, and he eventually found out some of his origins, like his parents and stuff like that. But it had nothing to do with me telling a black story. But I have stories that I've told that are black characters, or ideas that I have, but that's not, I feel like a writer or a creator should better just create.
About a year ago, I went to Highlights Foundation. I won a grant, and I met a lot of authors and some editors and agents. And we talked about how to write fiction with diversity, with integrity. It was for any of there were Asian authors there. There were white people, black people, Native American, Spanish people. And we were just discussing, like, if you're going to write a story with a character that's not from your origin, you need to do it with compassion, knowledgeably, and one of the main teachers for that particular module, she's a Korean American woman named Seulin Park. She's amazing. She wrote a book called The Long Walk to Water. It's about, I don't remember the exact country, I think it's from the Sudan, about an African man from the Sudan. She spoke to him. He didn't have a good grasp of the English language, but she was like, I'm not going to write this book the way I need it to be written. I need to ask him, I need to learn his culture. And she also wanted to explain that you need to have a seat at the table. If you've never written a story, if you've never known someone from the story you're writing, let me put it into terms of the teacher. My students, they wanted to write about Japanese characters, because they're all obsessed with anime. And I was like, have you ever been friends with a Japanese person? Have you ever had dinner with a Japanese person? Do you speak the language? Do you only watch anime? Exactly. So I said, do you think it's your right to write this story without having any knowledge other than the anime that you've seen? And they were like, no. So I said, for me, I write characters that I know, and because quote-unquote white is the quote-unquote default, authors like us that are of color, whether we're Korean, Japanese, Cuban, Haitian, Jamaican, we know that default, because I mean, it's the television, it's the commercials, the toys, we can, exactly, we have that more as a foundation. So it's easier for us to write that quote-unquote character than it would be for a person that's not from the dominant culture, quote-unquote white, or the default, to write us. So I have been to Japan, I speak the language, I eat the food, I have many Japanese friends. So when I wrote that story, I was like, hey, could y'all read this for sensitivity? And they're like, yeah, sure. This isn't good. You fix that. This is good. Oh, we like to change the title. So you get that feedback. So again, to answer the question, yeah, it's okay as a black writer to be an individual, like Sophie said. And like Mike said, we're just creators. But when it comes to writing things that have more have to, like a memoir, I would not feel comfortable me writing a memoir about a Japanese person. And I wouldn't feel comfortable someone writing about a memoir of 1950s maids living in the South. Well, I'm just saying, I'm just being honest. I mean, Color Purple, she wrote that story, she knew that. But it's a fine line to walk, but do it with fidelity, do it with integrity, do it with compassion, and do human things the human way.
And I think, I think that's the other thing. We've seen the power of the truth. And we've seen the power of the ultimate truth. Okay? And I think knowing that and being sort of a victim of lies, I think all writers, specifically black writers, have a responsibility to know the truth from the lie. And I think that's very broad, and I think that's a lot of, that goes for all writers, but especially us. And especially even for women, it's not just women's responsibility to be sensitive towards women. We live in a world that has been very chauvinistic. So we have to learn how to not perpetuate those ills. Oh, well, yeah, same, yeah. Sometimes we have that within black people. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to be hard on black people, and you black, that's your license. If you're a woman, you're hard on women, you might have that license, okay? But for somebody else to do it, mind your business, right? Or just tread very lightly, okay? Be very lightly. All right, now, last question, because I think we're down to maybe five or 6 minutes. So I'm going to give you a chance to wrap up. Tell us about your projects. But I just got one more question. It sort of piggybacks on what Monique was getting into. It's kind of why I settled on it. She might have looked at the screen to get and infuse her question, her answer. But sci-fi answers a lot of social questions. Sci-fi puts things out there. Social relationships between scenarios are what drives Star Trek. We care about it because we want to know how is it going to impact us? How is it going to impact the world that we live around? Sometimes we write stories deliberately to do that. And Monique was talking about one of her writers early on, if I remember correctly, wrote things as a message to the world that we live in. Now, I like to drop a little messages in my stories. I always say I have an L. Ron Hubbard complex. He's arguably the greatest Western science fiction writer of all time, writing over 200 books. He wrote sci-fi so well that he wrote a religion, okay? And people believe it is a religion from a science fiction writer, okay? So I want to do that. I want to write fiction so well that people believe it's fact. But is there a slippery slope in that? When it comes to writing messages and stories, are there any things that you need to be cautious of? How do you tread on those borders? So what do you think? What are the risks of doing that? Some people use pen names because they don't want to be associated with the messages in their stories. Any of you thinking on maybe an example of how that can go good, how that can go bad? Have you tried it? Was it good for you? How's your book being received? When you do it right? Yeah, so when it works well, people actually bond with you, right? Speak on that a little bit.
Well, the message that I perceived in my book was basically every action comes with a consequence. That was the basic. That was what my book was mostly about. And when I wrote it, so every book that I'm coming out with is going to have to see that message. And so far, everyone likes it because I have a new artist, which is all it's all women. I have to, I gotta say that.
Right. But
It's
that's
all
part of
women.
your brand.
Yes, because we don't get that recognition, and we don't, and I have to support, other women in comics.
And that's a responsibility.
Yes.
People ask me,
Yes.
is my editor black? And sometimes they weren't, sometimes they are, but people did ask me.
Me, I have a Muslim character. I have to hire a Muslim editor because, in fact, I have too much respect for that culture.
Right,
Yeah.
these proofreaders like when we were talking.
Yes, yes.
Data readers.
And I'm Haitian, so my character is, of course, La Boule. So it's respectful because I can write about my culture. Now, I'm writing a character that has a military background. Based on my best friend, I just get the information from her. I wanted to create a universe with diverse characters with diverse backgrounds. And this is why I like to in touch with my friends and actually community because I don't want to disrespect anybody's culture at all. So that's my take on it. Everybody likes it because I'm a writer, man.
Oh, there you go. I already gave it. Well, this is the last
Well,
one.
I mean, there are lots of risks. In an earlier panel, I talked about the handmaid's tale, just touched upon it. A lot of these messages and themes that we have for society, they have already happened. I think it's just a way of humanity, like digesting it and trying to work through what was this insanity that we did to other people that was so inhuman. Man's ability to do something so inhuman to other humans. So in the Handmaid's Tale, you got rights against women, being forced to have babies for rich people. That happened a lot. What other societal?
That's happening now with this new abortion legislation, but I don't want to get too political.
Please don't. I don't want to have to eat an entire cake today out of stress. But it depends. I mean, when I write, like looking at the YA, I don't know if any of you read a lot of YA books. I see a lot of young kids in the crowd. YA is crazy, and I mean that in a good way. The YA community is very, very young adult community. They're very loving, but they're also very passionate. And there were a lot of books in Twitterland and on Facebook that were pushed to the side because somebody was afraid that that book was in some way hurting the minds of children. So before the book even came out, Judy Blume had some controversy. But talking right now this year, there was a book by a Chinese woman, Amelie Zhao, that was going to be stopped from being published because people were saying, "Oh my God, it's racist, sexist, slavery." And the poor girl's like, I don't know the American culture. I'm just talking what happened in my community. I'm so sorry. So there was a backlash. So people were saying they could have destroyed the minds of children, the minds of society. But that's also a form of censorship. And I mean, do we want to be living in a communist society or a fascist society where it's like, you can't do that, you're hurting my feelings? And feelings can be hurt. But again, like I said, if people are writing with malicious intent, yes, then you can slay them in the reviews. Before a book is even birthed into the world, you have to allow public discourse so that we're not in a community or a society where it's like, oh, can't use that book. We have to be careful with the themes and ideas that we're putting out there and putting out there with, what is the word I'm looking for? Responsibility? Oh, I'm so sorry. You already saw it? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't.
He took away. Mike did it. And I think the only other thing I would say too is my answer to the question is, like you said, or you were saying, oh my God, don't go there, right? Remember before Luke Cage hit Netflix and broke Netflix bank, and before Black Panther sold a 700 million or whatever ticket sales, people would say, don't be too black, right? People won't like it, right? Well, it means, be careful with your title. Be careful with the characters you put on your cover. Because if you have too much black people who are not black may not read it. And that was a big risk. We are so post that, we don't even remember that. But we, as black sci-fi writers, had to fight for black characters to be uncovered. One of the early black writers who won the Hugo Award was David Anthony Durham. He couldn't put any characters on the cover of his book. He put the acacia tree. That was the name of his series. But was it about the acacia tree? No. It was about black people in a Game of Thrones type world. But he didn't put any of those people on the cover. It won the Hugo, but then, and that was a cautionary thing. And that was one of the risks they thought was a risk. But what we found out was that everybody likes hip hop, right? Everybody likes soul food, and everybody would like a black sci-fi story. I like a bunch of different gender stories. I love kung fu movies, and I didn't want no white people or black people in there. I only wanted Asian people when they were going after whoever killed the master, right? So I think that's that. Now we're finished with our panel. I know Monique, you can remind us the name of the book. And you're at a table in there. Actually, we share a table. Mike, can you tell us about your latest project? And Dorfis, fill us in on whatever you felt you left out, because I know you weaved it in. But I just want a last comment, so knock it out. Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Carroll. I'm over there. My book is The Harlem Shake, and also I'm doing the LitCon, Florida LitCon down there in Miami on South Beach next weekend. So come see me. I'll tell you all about my books and about LitCon. Thank you.
The book I have with me today is Moonstruck. Just right now, I'm just teaching and trying to write more stories, sell more stories to magazines. You can find me online. Follow me on Twitter.
I'm an artist. As a reminder, my current project I'm working on, I just got it in 2 days ago. It's a 80-year Marvel 80-year anniversary. So we're doing some bronze, silver, and gold. Different time periods of 80 years of Marvel, and I'm actually doing some card sets and some special bigger stocks that I'm doing for them, where they actually I send it back to them and they put them in packs and packages and stuff like that, and I keep some of them or stuff like that that I can sell. So just stop by my table. I do a lot of art. Got some other things in the works for independent stuff, independent comic companies and stuff like that too. But I'm just doing my thing, grinding. So just definitely stop by and grab my card. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. But I ain't doing that much on Twitter. But yeah, I don't say that much. So, but I'm all on all the social media. Thanks for listening.
How you guys doing? I have my first conflict. Is a byproduct of scientific experiment gone wrong. Basically, my character is a Haitian character that I based on myself. I also have another series I based on my best friend. You can find me on Instagram, Spiritual Universe. Well, keep you guys updated with my other comic book series that I have coming up. Pretty much, I'm also a freelance writer, so I'm actually writing like 2 other sci-fi books, which is going to be my first time writing sci-fi. So, pretty intrigued, and I also work in the education system. So,
Well, thank you. Does anybody have a burning question or anything like that? Well, thank you very much. All right, let's go back to the table.
thank you.
Yeah.